What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jay. Guys, I know it is another Talkin Tackle. I know. And I know it's Friday. My bad. I had to actually make this intro in I forgot to. I just suck at making intros and outros for these Talkin Tackles. I probably might just stop doing them and I'll do them during the actual Talkin Tackle part and just put the whole video on there. I should probably do that. But, puppy parent life's been crazy. I love it. And blah, blah, blah. Y'all probably tired of hearing about Scout at this point. Anyway. In tonight's Talkin Tackle, the tackle that we're going to be talking about is a spinnerbait. And you see all the sun and stuff, just by the way, ADD? It's because of the fishing I was doing today. But we're going to be talking about spinnerbaits. And our special guest is going to be Mr. Tightlines TV, Mr. Jordan. All right, guys, I'm going to take you to it. Here we are again to another Talkin Tackle, and tonight the special guest that we have is Mr. Jordan Costanzo. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, it is.
As everybody else knows him too, is Tightlines TV. He does a lot of his own videos, but he also does a lot over on the Carl's Bait and Tackle one. I see you a lot over there. So, but yeah, go for it. Introduce yourself, and then we're gonna get back on the subject we were talking about before we started recording, because that was just kind of ironic in that, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely ironic.
But
what's going on, everybody? As she said, my name's Jordan. Yeah, I kind of bounce around. I do a few things. You might have seen my face on Mystery Tackle Box stuff, maybe Carl's Bait and Tackle stuff, or my YouTube channel. I kind of bounce around. This past year has been quite the year for me. It's been crazy, doing a little bit of everything, but for the most part, I'm just a normal dude who likes to fish way too much. That's about it.
That's the dream, right? I think that's where we're all kind of at.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good problem to have, that's for sure.
Definitely. So before we got on to recording, we were just talking about, I asked him how he pronounced his real name, and it's Giordano. I hope you don't, if you don't want people knowing, I don't know.
It doesn't matter. No.
All right.
So the whole funny thing why a lot of people, because this actually comes up a lot with social media, so I'll just explain it real quick.
There you go.
So it's funny. The reason I stopped going by Giordano, for those of you who don't know, my real name's Giordano, not Jordan, was because it was so difficult in school. The teachers couldn't pronounce it correctly. They would be because of the way my parents spelt it, which was Jordan with an O at the end, they would be like Giordano, and I'd be like, no, it's Giordano, and they'd be like Giordano, and they could never pronounce it right.
Giordano.
Yeah, and so in school, everybody used to laugh, and I was so embarrassed by it.
Yeah.
So I was just every time I'd come up, they'd be like, they could never just go full-fledged into it. So I'd be like, just call me Jordan.
It's easy, it's simpler, you know.
Yeah. And then I went to a different school, and the teacher started pronouncing it correctly, and everybody thought it was super cool. And everyone's like, dude, you have the sickest name ever. And I'm like,
it's unique, right. You know. I don't know another Giordano.
So I started going by it, and then it started a bunch of issues everywhere else in life, like my email, be like Giordano Costanzo at blah, 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 .com. And people would always be like, oh, I wouldn't get paperwork or something.
They'd forget the O or something.
No, they would take the O out because they thought it was a typo.
Yeah.
They'd be like, oh, because I'd be calling myself hey, my name's Jordan. And then I put
right. Well, I wondered that too, personally, because I know you as Jordan just from your videos and everything like that. But I noticed on Instagram, you had the O at the end. So I have a unique name too. It's Jamie. It's that simple. I go by Jay, literally across my, all my platforms, people know me as Jay, but the spelling of Jaymi, I have a similar situation. It just got kind of complicated sometimes growing up. I got Jaymi a lot. And like I said, I never thought it would be complicated because I don't know. It seems self-explanatory to me. Most people, it's 50-50 shot. Some people would guess it right and then the other wouldn't. So I just, ended up getting Jay from my mom when I played softball for a long time. My mom gave me the nickname and it just stuck, and it's easier, so I totally get the easier process there.
So,
but
kind of where it went, I just leave it at that. Cause everybody's always like, it's just so funny. I'd be like, oh, I need to do something with legal paperwork. And they're like, oh, we put Jordan on it, or we put Jordan on your flight and it doesn't match your ID. And it's so the little O at the end just caused so many issues.
It matters.
Yeah. But
And then we got, so we were talking about that. And then what we got onto was both of our girlfriends' name is Rachel. And we both understand the struggle here. So the normal spelling of Rachel is Rachel, typically speaking. Yep. Both of our girlfriends are Ael, which let me guess, does she get the Rachel
no,
kind of
everybody
stuff?
goes Raquel. Everybody calls my girlfriend Raquel. That's what it is. It's like Michael, like Raquel. I just think it's so funny because but that one I see like doesn't really make sense. But like, I mean, I guess it makes more sense. That's so funny because I never met somebody who spelled their name like that until I met my girlfriend, and then
that's funny, we had this conversation. So. The only other one's like Rachel.
Unless
Ray.
that or I don't know, maybe I don't know. Like my girlfriend, we might be dating the same girl. Who knows?
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. No, I don't think that's the case. But. Who knows?
No, who knows? They're in different rooms right now.
Yeah, she's not home, so she's
well, mine is so.
Oh, that's funny.
That's funny. But, I haven't met many at all that have spelled their names with the AEL at the end either. It's more of a unique spelling. So at least we get to struggle with that one.
Yeah, no kidding.
But so tonight we'll get after all that now. So tonight, the lure that we talked about, we mentioned a couple, but we agreed to talk about spinnerbaits tonight. So why do you like spinnerbaits so much? What about spinnerbaits are just the it for you?
So when you asked me like, what's your favorite lure? Like what's one lure you could talk about? I thought about it for a minute because there's a lot of baits I like out there. Yeah. And if you fish like a lot, you'll know that you often, even if you love a lure so much, you can't use it all the time. Yeah. Right. So I thought about this hard, and then it just seemed easy. I was like, it's a spinnerbait. Spinnerbait's got to be, for me personally. I say that the spinnerbait is like the number one lure that I think anybody could use all the time, is because like it's just genuinely the easiest, simplest, best lure ever. It just is. Okay, but I'll actually go into more detail about it. But no, but there's a lot of people who don't like spinnerbaits. There's a lot of people that are intimidated by them. A lot of people just prefer not to fish them. And I think this is one bait that I would recommend anybody from a beginner level on up to an expert level, because spinnerbaits, they're easy to fish. They're easy to use. They don't take a lot of effort. You cast them out there, you reel them in. But you can also do a bunch of different things with the physical bait that will amplify it, help you catch more fish.
Get bigger bites, more bites.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. Tough scenarios and things like that. And that's why I love the spinnerbait so much. I'm also very ADHD. So
me too. Hey, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I like to fish consistently. I like to cover a lot of water.
Yep.
I try to slow down. I do love fishing jigs, but spinnerbaits, it's a great way to cover water and
move,
catch fish.
And you can slow roll them if you want. You can. Yeah. There is slow rolling a spinnerbait, so there is a slower method to it.
Yep. And and I think a lot of people don't necessarily know that you can go real deep into it with a spinnerbait, and it can it changes your odds for a lot of things. Like I was just why am I saying that? Down. I was just down in Texas last week. We're actually testing some products with Catchco and things like that. But
nice. Yeah.
One of the products that we're coming out. Well, I hope I can say this. I think we have a spinnerbait. I don't think it matters. I think I can say that. I think it's just, I'm not going to say what it is.
If it helps, it's not this. If it helps, this one's not going to be coming out for a few weeks. So maybe we'll get a window.
It's okay. If I get in trouble, I get in trouble. But no, I'm just kidding. Oh man, that's bad. I'm going to get myself.
Why do I feel like a spinnerbait by who?
No, I won't say anything, but we were testing spinnerbaits. Let me just.
Okay.
So it was cold front, massive cold front, abnormally cold in Texas. It was like we were waking up and we were hitting the lakes and it was 27 degrees out, which is like very for Texas.
Yeah, cold.
So really cold water temperatures, really weird fishing scenario, and it's February. So
yeah,
we were down there, and one thing that was producing really big fish and pretty much fish over any other bait we were fishing was a Colorado blade spinnerbait.
I actually have that one. Is that the 10,000 fish one?
This
the one I have. I was about to say I saw the big Colorado blade, and then I was like,
I got a bunch of those. I got that same one right here.
That's one right here. I like the Colorado blades, especially when you're trying to slow roll them.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
and that's what was so crucial is I brought this particular bait down with me. Oops, I'm just hitting my laptop, but it had different blades on it. And I
Okay.
turned around and I knew with the cold water and the wood that we were fishing and everything like that, that, you know, I needed to switch out my blade. I pulled the blades off of this. We had a whole bunch of blades because we were just like trying a bunch of different
Seeing
things.
what would work.
And this isn't even your average size blade that comes on a spinnerbait. Like a lot of times when you get a Colorado blade, you'll get, I want to say probably like the biggest I have found them out of this thing is like a size 4.
This one's,
So,
do you know
that
what
one's
comes
big,
standard
but
on that one? This one's
that
big.
the cycle bait is a beautiful thing. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
a cycle bait is something that was designed for
Wobble.
yeah, just really thumping. So if you want a lot of thump, you got to have a big
Yeah.
blade. You gotta have a lot going on. But yeah, a lot of spinner baits don't come with giant blades. So I always bring extra blades with me when I'm doing stuff that I don't really know what I'm getting into. And I turned around and I fished, you know, a spinner bait very similar to this for the first 2 days. Couldn't get bit, fished every other bait on the sun, couldn't get bit. And the day that I switched over to like the size 6 Colorado blade,
Wow.
and just single blade, nothing else going on,
Yeah.
everything out there and just let it thump really slow. We were getting bite after bite.
Nice.
After bite. The Ryan Whitaker was in the boat with me the first day, and the dude went back to back on 8-pounders.
Oh man, that's a dream right now for me.
It was
8-pounders kind of what I'm reaching for at this point. I got close to a 6. Now I'm trying to reach for an 8.
Yeah, I'm there too. I lost a really nice one, but we have some cool footage coming out that we're going to be sharing with that. So
That's exciting.
I think it's okay that we're talking about, you know, the fact that I don't know when it's coming out, but we definitely have a spinnerbait in the works and it's sick. So
I'm down. Yeah, that's exciting to hear about for sure.
But yeah, but that's what it comes down to. Like, you can get out there. What I tell people all the time is like, if you never fished before and you want to catch your first bass, a lot of people give someone a Cinco or something like that.
Yeah.
Because it catches fish without even trying. But I give people a spinnerbait. I'm like, hey, take this bait out there, cast it in a pond, reel it straight in at a steady pace. You're going to catch a fish. You're eventually going to get bit. You know, like you were saying, cold water, big thumpy stuff.
Yeah.
Murky water, big thumpy stuff. That water warms up. You can turn around and go into willow blades.
Yeah.
Fish a little bit faster, have a little bit more flash, do a lot more. So there's a ton you can do with spinnerbaits. And I think that's just what it is. You can produce a bunch of bites. You can produce giant bites. You can do whatever you want. It's a custom.
And cover water, and it's just very versatile.
Yep. And you can put stuff on.
Yeah, right. That's that's definitely what's your favorite trailer as far as going with trailers? Do you prefer it just for anybody who doesn't know anything kind of thing. Would you prefer like a swim bait? Would you prefer any kind of crawl pattern? Is there different scenarios for them?
Yeah, I think that comes down to personal preference. I mean,
okay.
I'm very big on vibes, right? So where a lot of people might be stern about like, oh, you got to put a crawl on a jig or you got to put a paddle, like,
yeah,
do whatever makes you happy, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm very against, like, if I put a lure in the water and I run it by the boat and I don't like the way that it looks in the water, I won't fish it because I'm not confident in it, right?
Yeah.
For me personally, spinnerbaits, for me, the all-time favorite and best trailer, this guy right here, the Onexo Swim. These guys.
You mean like this one right? That's funny. I actually have them right here.
Yeah.
I was literally pulling at them and I was like, let me grab them. And then I saw these, and this is that Pro Blue Red Pearl. I love this color. This is a good color. Yeah.
It's available in many different color schemes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Lots of colors.
The reason that I love the Exo Swim, like, and this is, I'm not just saying this.
I know it.
I swear to God,
I'm right there with you.
I've never had a paddle tail swim bait. Like, everybody fishes Kitex, and nothing against Kitech or anything, but as far as like action and durability goes, you know, Kitex look great, but I would fish Kitex on spinnerbaits, chatterbaits. I catch like 3 fish and they rip all the way down that hook channel or something like that. And it was just, that's, you know, baits work, and really good baits. Sometimes, like, a lot of people don't know, like, a lot of people get mad when plastic companies make a plastic that rips up a ton. Like, that doesn't mean it's a bad soft plastic.
No.
It might mean it's just quality, and like, you get what you know, that's just how it is. Right. You want good action, you got to get really soft plastic. So, but the belly wobble that comes out of this bait and the durability that you get it's just unbelievable.
Something else.
It is something else. And it's such a good profile bait. And I'll fish these things on everything. Chatterbaits, spinnerbait, swim jigs.
Yeah, just a swim head
with a bullet weight, everything.
Yeah.
But they make this guy right here. This is the big one. This is like the 4.75.
Yeah. I got the small one. This one.
Yep.
This is the 4-inch that I got here. I got other sizes too over on the wall.
That's the other thing too. You get them a bunch of sizes, but this guy is like the 3.1 something or another.
Yeah, inch. Something like that. It's the smaller one.
I swear it was made for spinnerbaits. It's the perfect size for like spinnerbaits, chatterbaits. You don't have to rip them in half.
No.
They fit right on there, and it's perfect.
There you go.
So that's what I do. I primarily fish spinnerbaits with a trailer. I like to bulk things up. I like to just beef up baits.
Okay.
If I'm not gonna put a trailer on there, I will run a trailer hook.
I was just gonna ask, do you run trailer hooks at all?
The rule of thumb for me when I'm fishing a spinnerbait with a trailer without a trailer hook, but a trailer.
Right.
Because they ask me a lot. They're like, dude, why are you making your hookup ratio less or whatever by not? Because people are like, well, you could still put a trailer hook on this bait.
Yeah, it gets in the way though.
Well, it can get in the way. But at the end of the day, if you're fishing this spinnerbait, right, with this paddle tail swim bait on it, and they're not getting the hook, then they don't want it. They don't want it good enough. You know what I'm saying? Like if they should be eating this whole, if they really want that bait and they're eating it good, you don't even gotta worry about that.
They'll take it.
The whole thing in their mouth. They'll take it. Now, people will disagree with me on that 100%, but I'm telling you right now, if you're getting fish that are eating good enough, you won't lose fish on a spinnerbait. You won't.
Okay. And what about,
I said, that's just me though. I mean, everybody's do what you do.
Yeah, all kinds of,
I'm not saying don't fish a trailer hook. I don't want
to
be like, hey, I watched that podcast. He was like, told me not to fish a trailer hook with my trailer, and I lost the biggest bass in my life.
It's gonna happen. You know what I mean? It's all about, and it always, in every single video, it's always a matter of, it really just boils down to, your opinion and what really, I swear in all the videos I say that at least once. It's going to boil down to how you feel about it, your opinion, go out there, try it all and see what you like throwing the best, what weight is your favorite weight to throw, and what scenarios, or is there different scenarios for different weights when it comes to spinnerbaits?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's very dependent on the situation.
Okay.
I would say the best all around size, like if you're going to go fish a pond, or when I'm fishing generally shallow water, I'm going to fish like a 3/8 ounce, which I believe is like this guy right here, which when you go to Walmart, anywhere for that matter, that when you're seeing just spinnerbaits on the shelf, typically they're like 3/8 ounce. When I'm fishing deeper water, I'm trying to slow roll things. I don't fish spinnerbaits in very deep water with you. That's just me personally, because I live in Ohio and we don't have a lot of scenarios where I need to fish a heavier swim bait, but we were fishing like a lot of wood, like a lot of trees in the water in Texas, and it was probably like I don't know, we didn't have graphs on our boat, but I had to guess at least 12 foot.
Wow.
And so I moved up to like a 1/2 ounce because I really wanted to get down there. I really wanted to just pin the bottom for the most part.
Yeah.
Cover water. So depending on the scenario, but yeah, I mean, I'd say like probably 3/8 ounces, like a good all around. Every once in a while when I'm fishing a pond, I might downsize to like a 1/4, or like those mini zingers that they came out with.
I was just gonna ask about as far as profile, because I actually don't have a mini zinger. I do have regular size, but I do have like a smaller profile one that I got here, and so what are your thoughts on a smaller profile, as far as best scenario to fish a smaller profile? Is it like typical more pressured situations, or is there more to it?
Yeah, that'll matter too. A lot, you got to look at the bait that you're fishing. Like you're fishing a pond, if primarily they're not eating big giant bait. If you don't have a lake that has a massive push of big shad, you don't necessarily, some people are under the impression all the time that big bait equals big fish, and believe it or not, big fish will sometimes eat little baits. So it depends on the time. Like you're saying, pressure, definitely it could help in pressure. Whatever that forage those fish are keying in on, if they're keying in on smaller bait fish. It's not a bad time to downsize. Water temperature, stuff like that. Fish get finicker. Finicker.
Yeah, right. When you said that, I was like, we're gonna
like
roll
finicky?
with that. I think
Yeah, I was like,
finicker,
yeah,
finicker.
yeah,
It sounds weird to say.
I feel like that. Yeah, finicky,
finicky.
Yeah,
Yeah, something like that.
We're gonna roll with it.
Yeah.
I just didn't want anybody to think I was saying anything like just mumbo jumbo over here. But yeah, when basket clear, super clear water and stuff like that, they'll get finicky, right? They'll get weird and they don't always want to eat a bait that they see all the time. So sometimes downsizing to something little helps too, because not many people throw little spinner baits and stuff like that. But other scenarios too, creeks and stuff like that. We do a lot of smallmouth fishing in the creeks here. So little baits like that are great to not get hung up in the rocks and to just play through the current and stuff. So if you want to get out with a spinning rod and you're fishing little tiny rivers and stuff, it's a great bait to throw. So it's got its use for sure.
Okay. Favorite colors. Let's go into the color game. What kind of colors do you have? Are you a simple kind of guy, or are you more complex, like every little bit of everything?
I do got a little bit of everything.
Right.
I need a wild card, but I'll be honest, I'm very what do I say? I'm just yeah, I don't know. It's funny. I thought about this the other day. It's funny that you're asking me this, because I sat down. I was going through my baits because I got all my boxes and stuff in like my little fishing corner. And I'm like, I looked at myself after I opened my chatterbaits and my spinnerbaits, like, dang, dude, you like got 90% like white spinnerbaits and 90% white chatterbaits. And I don't think that's a good thing. I really, so let's just say white's probably my favorite to throw given this scenario. So if I could just pick one to have in my back pocket, it's going to be like a white spinnerbait probably.
Okay.
But if the water's murky and rough, I'm going to pick up black, like this guy right here. This is black with a red eye.
What about bluegill patterns?
Bluegill pattern, yeah, I'll pick up bluegill for sure.
Like, look how big this blade is. You see how massive that blade is?
Is that the Terminator, or what is that? Which one is that? Or is it
this is Battle Baits.
Oh,
I couldn't give you the specifics on the name of it. It's Battle Baits.
I had one that looks similar to it.
It's huge.
I think it's massive. Yeah.
Yeah, it would. I mean, it's got a great. I love the skirt on it because it's got a real good bluegill pattern to it. Well, bluegill's always one of my go-tos.
Yeah, like pre-spawn, I'll throw bluegill a lot because you got bluegills everywhere. They're eating. They're starting to get on beds. Bluegills are a big problem. Bass get rid of them. So, I do try to be strategic. But yeah, I just always find myself sticking to like that white and chartreuse.
Okay.
Because that's just what works for me, but there's nothing wrong. I do got reds and stuff like that.
I was going to ask about reds if you threw them. I know that always depends. You're in like the prime right now that red is working.
Not me. I wish.
Not you. Okay. Maybe when this one comes out, it'll be better for you at that time.
Yeah. No, I got you. But yeah, no, I won't drag it. I talk a lot. It's funny. I'll find a million words to say one thing, but yeah, I'm pretty big on just like natural colors. That's just for spinner baits, at least, for sure. But.
That works. Kind of combo that you're looking at. What's your length of the pole, right down to the nitty gritty with the reel and the line and all that good stuff? That's
another good question.
Yeah, see, I don't go by script, but like I know the kind of stuff I want to get information out of.
No, I'm glad you're asking me questions. I like that because I like to have because like I make Carl's videos and stuff, and I'm always having to like explain things to people, but I'm never asked the question. So it's kind of cool to do it that way. But again, it's going to come down to scenario. If I'm fishing like that little 1/4 ounce like zinger or whatever it is, I'm going to throw it on a spinning rod, probably, just because I don't want to have to work harder. I want to work smarter than harder.
I'm fairly certain those were made more for a spinning situation, or even the BFS situations that are coming into the world now,
So I'd throw that on probably like a 7-foot medium heavy spinning rod reel. I just use whatever. I'm not huge on gear ratios for spinning reels, but yeah, that's that. 3/8 when I'm throwing the normal size spinnerbait where I'm covering a lot of water. When I'm fishing ponds and stuff, I'll throw like a 7 foot. I primarily use the Guggen Go-To for that.
Okay. Yeah. So 7 foot all around.
Medium heavy. I think it might be a fast action. I think, but
I
yeah.
think they are. Yeah. I mean, that's the typical when you define a go-to rod, that's the 7 foot fast action, medium heavy, sweet spot.
I'm weird about like what I want on the. I change it up so much because it's funny because everybody wants a specific setup for specific bait and stuff like that, and for me, it changes all the time depending on the scenario. You know, like I like to have a fast tip. I like to feel that bite. I like to get a quick hook set, but you know, even with spinnerbait, sometimes I want a little bit of load. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people don't want that necessarily, but for me, in certain scenarios, I want a little bit of load. So I might go from that medium heavy fast action to medium heavy moderate, depending on the situation. But for the most part, for bait casters, I'm usually throwing 12 to 14 pound fluorocarbon. When I was in Texas, because we had mondos and a bunch of trees, we amped it up like 17 to 20. Yeah, we were running 17 to 20 pound fluoro. And then I'm typically throwing like a 6, usually not over like a 7, like a 6 to 3 to 1 gear ratio.
Okay. So nothing too fast.
Yeah, because I think a spinnerbait's one of those baits where you want a happy medium reel, right? I keep hitting my computer screen. Sorry.
Absolutely. No, you're good. No worries.
So, you know, anything over 7, it's fine. You use what you got. But I think that 6.3 to like 7 gear ratio is a really good happy medium where if you want to burn a spinnerbait, you can. You just got to move your wrist a little bit.
You just got to be faster.
If you just want to, but it's not even that slow. I think it's fast enough to get you going really fast.
Right.
But then it's also, you know, you can just kind of hang out and you're going to get a really good consistent speed. So I love like 7 gear ratios for me personally. You know, again, even if I'm slow rolling like a half ounce deep and I'm thumping it, I'm just going to roll like a 6.3 and just real slow. That's just how.
Yeah. If you have an issue, that's a good thing of advice that I've heard is that if you know that you're someone who's ADHD, who really likes to cover a lot of water and try to reel it in real quick, maybe go with a lower gear ratio because it's still coming in slower and you're trying, especially on like colder water scenarios, not necessarily like coming up in the spring, but like colder water scenarios or situations that are more pressured where you want something more slow rolling necessarily. They say to get a lower gear ratio because it'll come in slower and you're not having to, I guess, I don't know if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like if you're wanting to move, you know what I mean? Like your mind's moving fast, but you're trying to actually have patience with the water.
Right. No, I think that is a good way to learn too, so long as you understand why you're doing that. You know what I'm saying? I think gear ratio is one of those things where it can make a big difference in bass fishing. And although I'm a huge, you know, I preach use what you got. I don't care. You know what I mean? I don't care. What's important to me is that you're out fishing, right? That's the most important thing. So by any means, anybody who's watching this, you know, if you have a 5 gear ratio reel at home and you're flipping jigs because that's all you have, like, that's fine.
Get out there and do it, you know,
just you burn that wrist a little bit, but
you can always adjust.
Yeah, you can always adjust. So that is funny. I never thought about it because that is a big thing. Like I find myself, and I'm not trying to use it as an excuse, but being so ADHD, I have to constantly be moving. I'm always tapping my foot. I'm always like, always. Like, that's why I'm so like, I always ask my friends when I'm in the boat, like, can I run the trolling motor? Because I need to be doing something.
Gotta be doing something. I'm like always wiggling.
Something. Yeah. And but yeah, that's probably a good way to learn to really just get yourself, you know, to like commit to slowing down and learning how a bait works. Cause it does make a difference. I've been in scenarios, where people are fishing like an 8.5 and they're like frustrated that their crankbait's not working right or something. Like, cause I think it's cooking
too fast. You know, you're sitting there just, you're having too much patience and you're over there, you're able to reel it this fast. Well, an 8 going that fast is super fast, you know? So if you got like a 6 to something ratio in your hand and you're still going this fast, it's actually coming in slower though. Right. So it's, you know, but like you said, you have to kind of be aware of why you're doing that.
Yeah.
You know,
because like, I feel like a lot of people will get comfortable with something that they like. Like I've had friends that got really comfortable with like a 5.4 and I was like, dude, that's awesome. But then the day we're flipping worms or flipping jigs and they can't catch up to that slack and they get really frustrated. And they're like, I fish crankbait so great with this. I fish moving bait so great with this and it works awesome. But I don't understand. Anytime I flip a jig, I was like, well, that's because you're a different kind of bite. And a lot of people don't know that, man. Like I'll be honest, like I wasn't hip to understanding, you know, gear ratios until like pretty far on into my fishing career, whatever you want to call it. Like when I fished for a very long time without a care, I had a million rods and I didn't have a care in the world to understand what ratios were until I really got invested in bass fishing, like hardcore.
Yeah.
It's an easy thing to overlook.
It's like one of those situations where it's kind of like, and I'm a nerd when it comes to, I think that's one of the big reasons why I really fell in love with fishing, because it's always there's always something new to learn. Even when you're, this is what I love about, these talking tackles too, is because I might know a lot about spinner baits, not a lot, I certainly don't know all of it. So I'm going to learn something new. I already probably have, if I sat here and thought about it. We've just been chit chatting, but, I love being able to do all this. I don't even know where I was carrying on. I kind of lost my thought process. There goes that ADHD moment there. But
that's funny.
Scenario is I do love the teaching aspect. I love learning new things. And that's one of the things that like really got me into fishing, was because it's so in depth that you can take something like a spinnerbait, like you said. You can take it, and a beginner can take it out and take it right out of the package and tie it on, and you can put a trailer on there. But would you say you could take a spinnerbait right out of package and just throw it?
Yeah. I mean, of course, that's why.
Do you think it needs a trailer on it?
No, I don't think it needs a trailer. I think it's going to work either way. I think there's just scenarios where I might feel more confident with a trailer, or like in the fall, like perfect example.
Yeah.
In the fall, you want to bulk up your presentation, because these depending where you live, but pretty much for the most part, these fish are really packing their bellies. They're getting ready for winter. Yep. So, they're keying in on bigger bait. Plus your shad profiles, your bait fish, they've had all summer to grow and everything. So the bait fish that you're seeing early on in the spring compared to the fall are typically different size.
Yeah.
But with that being said, the fish also have a bigger appetite. So, going in and bulking up your bait is going to benefit you. So, but maybe early on in the spring where you have inconsistent weather, you might have a warm day, but cold water temperatures, or vice versa.
Right.
Taking off that trailer might not be a bad thing to nimble up your presentation. I know it sounds crazy, but with bass jigs, that's like a huge thing. I will sometimes, when I'm fishing bass jigs in cold scenarios or really finicky scenarios where I know the fish are feeding on the bottom, but a lot of people would think like, oh, just drag a bass jig in cold weather because they're going to eat it. But sometimes I completely eliminate that bass jig. I get rid of all that stuff and I'll fish just the trailer by itself and drag that, or I'll fish, I'll go from throwing it, what I normally throw as a trailer on my bass jig, to something very, very subtle, very minute. Maybe I was fishing a jig that had a craw on it with appendages that really fluttered.
Yeah.
Well, I'm taking it off and now I'm throwing a bug bait on where, it still has that profile there, but it's not fluttering at all now.
And it's less subtle.
Yeah. So I think it's the same thing. I think in every scenario, the bait's going to work inevitably. Like I think if you buy one out of the package and you cast it out in a pond, you're going to catch fish. But are there scenarios where changing the presentation is going to catch you more fish? Probably.
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to sit here and think about like, are there any kind of like tips and tricks, or so something that just really crossed my mind is painted blades. What are your thought process on painted blades? What are your preference on any kind of colored blade or anything like that? Silver, gold, painted?
That is a good question. Do I have thoughts on it? I like them. I like having silver and gold. Just because it's flashy, and I feel like it's just more common, but
usually
I don't typically like to throw, like a lot of times you'll find like a chartreuse blade or like bright pink, bright orange. I like that in murky water. I like a bright orange or chartreuse when I'm dealing with weird water contrast, but when it comes to like clear water and stuff like that, I just try to stay as natural as possible. And I truly think, this is just my opinion, I think like a silver blade with that flashiness looks more like a school of minnows, or looks more like a shiner, more so than a painted blade. But I do think painted blades have their their place. Like I musky fish a lot besides bass fish, and when it's cloudy out, when I have really cloudy weather, and it's really great. I love throwing chartreuse blades. I'll throw like a double chartreuse bucktail.
Okay.
That kills it. So I've never, honestly haven't played too much in it with bass, just because it's not something I necessarily look for when I buy spinner baits, but I'm sure it's got its purpose for sure.
Do you know anything? So this is something I pulled it out earlier when I was pulling out all of my spinner baits. It's called a Beetle Spin, right? So what? I've never fished one of these before. I got this in my advent calendar. Actually, the Mystery Tackle Box advent calendar. I got this, and I thought it looked cool. I love spinnerbaits, so I figured, it had to be something like that. But I have never actually fished it. So, like, where, when, and where? What is this? Is it related to the spinnerbait? And
that thing's an OG.
Yeah, okay.
Like when I think of two lures, like if you told me like what is like the most OG baits you can think of in bass fishing, or like not, or just fishing in general, not bass.
Yeah.
You get a rooster tail and you got a Beetle Spin.
And see, I've never fished either one of those. I have rooster tails too. I need to fish them now. Like that's one of those rooster tail I've heard a lot about, and I want to go fish a rooster tail. I don't know much about either one of them, even though they're OGs. So
the rooster tail was my first introduction to fishing in general.
Wow.
Like that's the first time I ever fished an actual lure and caught fish without like a worm or bread or anything. And that's kind of what got me hooked.
Wow.
Where do they serve their purpose? For me, at least at this point, panfish, really. I know.
Okay.
Random, but if I'm gonna go crappie fishing or I want to catch some bluegills and stuff, I'll throw like a rooster tail or a Beetle Spin. You'll definitely catch bass on them. Why do I not recommend fishing them? Like, will you catch a 5-pounder on a Beetle Spin? Yes, you could definitely catch a 5-pounder, but that Beetle Spin in particular, like I wouldn't necessarily trust the wire. It's a lot more nimble, and it's not necessarily geared towards catching giant fish, in my opinion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think it might bend out and put you in a sticky situation, but it's just an OG bait. It's a good thing to learn. And the difference with those two baits in particular, why I think they're so crucial that they're still around, and in my opinion, is most people when they start fishing, they pick up like a spin cast rod or a push button.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Most push buttons are like 5'5". They're not even 6.
They're short. Yeah.
They're short. They're really skinny. They're meant for bobber fishing. You pick up something like this and you throw it on a push button rod, you're gonna have a tough time. Or you
might your rod's gonna be like
right. So I think fishing something like a little Beetle Spin is gonna give you the same concept as fishing something like this, just on a way smaller setup, and it's gonna allow you to fish more productively. And I feel like it's just a good extra introduction bait to like getting your way into your foot in the door for fishing.
That makes sense. So like I said, I've never actually fished one. But I've fished spinnerbaits before, so it's one of those. I kind of figured it was more for the panfish game, but I wasn't certain. I guess you kind of look at like this part. It kind of reminds of a crappie bait, essentially. The bottom part there.
It's
so
like a little grub.
Sense.
But no, I mean, I would argue that if you took that to a pond, you'd probably catch more bass than like panfish in like a good pond that has.
Because bass are more aggressive and typically more willing to bite.
Yeah, well, that, and I think it's just a bigger profile bait. Like for me personally, like it's hard I've never tried it. I've never gone pan fishing with like fake worms and jigs and stuff like that. I'm sure it's easy, but I feel like
I've tried a couple of times and it's just not as easy as it seems.
So you drop a worm in there and you'll catch anything. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like a live worm. So like, it's easier to do it that way. But if you live in places where the panfish get giant, I'm sure it's a lot more fun. In Ohio, we don't come by giant bluegills and stuff like that too often.
I've seen some big, me personally, I haven't caught them, but I've seen how big some bluegill can get. And I would be like, man, if I had those just chilling in my pond too, I would be out fishing them like they were a game fish too. But you get your little handful ones and
right.
That's fast food. That's something, they're just going to eat up, no problem. But you're catching the big ones that are like as big as your head. Yep. That's a whole nother game.
And that rooster tail, don't sleep on the rooster tail.
No, I'm gonna have to get that one out too.
You will catch bluegills like crazy on a rooster tail. They will attack that.
That's fun. It can be fun in its time,
That's what I used to do. My uncle used to take me out. He'd give me a rooster tail with my push button rod, and I would catch bluegills all day long on them. I never even think I caught a bass in the time that I remember using one. But they're also great for other stuff. Like we have steelhead here in our rivers.
Wow.
this time of year. So you cast rooster tail out, you'll catch steelhead, you'll catch crappie, you'll catch bass, you'll catch small, you'll catch anything, everything.
Nice.
It just looks like a little minnow. So
Yeah, because they'll just take it like it's, does it have a certain fall to it? I would assume, I guess. I don't.
they're literally just like, you just got fish one. It's just like, it's
Okay.
just you'll fish it and it's gonna feel nostalgic, but you've never fished one before. But it's just gonna feel
Right.
nostalgic. You know what I mean?
And
You'll
be
be
like, this is just the way it's supposed to be.
yeah, like go get an ultralight rod and go fish with one. You'll have a blast because it's
I have
like
a medium light. It's 7-foot
you'll
medium light. It's my crappie setup. I mean, it's super light. Maybe that'll work
out
now.
there and
Yeah.
just reel it in. You'll feel it, but like vibrate, and then it just stops. It's awesome.
That's cool. So back to the spinnerbait situation. Is there any kind of tips or tricks or anything like that you have as far as like, do you move it around? Like, do you adjust this at all to make it swim a certain way? Or, I mean, because earlier you were talking about how sometimes you'll take your blades off and you'll switch them off for bigger sizes, depending on the scenario. So,
I don't modify the bait as is. I mean, some things to look out for. If your bait looks like this,
yeah.
it's not supposed to be like that. I know that sounds like dumb, but like anytime I see my bait, because like what happens is you don't have what am I trying to say? Like I want to say like eyelet. What do you have on other baits? O-rings,
an eyelet kind of thing. Yeah, like a little area. So like,
yeah.
So we'll go for example, the zinger comes with the little green ring on there, and that kind of keeps it there for you.
Correct. That's I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is because you don't have an O-ring or a closed area to attach.
Yeah, something.
No matter what happens, at some point your line ends up sliding somewhere, and so many times I've had line make its way somewhere else with a fish on it and it gets bent out straight. So two things I'm always paying attention to, or one main thing that I'm always paying attention to when I'm reeling my bait in is it running straight? So if my bait's not running straight like this, sometimes they'll be spinning, like that.
Yeah.
And my bait needs to be modified. So that might be as simple as just taking it in your hand and squeezing it and putting it back to normal. And the back wire here will get bent out of shape too. Now you don't want to play with them too much, because at the end of the day, it is, wire, and eventually it will get brittle and it will break.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, those are just like two things I'm looking up, but as far as like physically modifying it, I don't think I really have any tips or anything that I do. I kind of just pull them out. I throw a trailer on them, make sure they're running the way that I like. And if I want more vibration, I add some blades. If I want a smaller or bigger blade, I change that out as well. But yeah, I mean, you should be pretty good to go. That's great about these. There's only one way they're supposed to work technically. So
yeah,
as long as they're doing
favorite go-to size on blades? Is there any like a favorite that you just and a go-to sense? Like if you're just kind of picking and going.
Probably this guy. If I'm just gonna roll with it, I'm gonna pick this guy. This guy has like the best of both worlds. So you have, I call this a hybrid.
Yeah.
Forgive me if I'm wrong. I don't think that's correct at all.
It's something like that. It has both of them.
Yeah. So I call it like a hybrid because you got a little Colorado on here. So it thumps.
Yeah.
You got a little bit of vibration, but you also can cut a lot of water. You got your willow blade on there. There is another blade that a lot of people probably don't know about called Indiana blade.
Yeah.
So those are really cool too. They're like a good mix.
I almost wish I don't have any of an Indiana blade, and it's not anywhere near as common. So like you said, most people won't even know what it is. It's more like teardrop shaped in a sense.
Yeah, exactly. Like imagine this Colorado, but
it's like if the willow and the Colorado had a baby.
Yep, exactly. Just meet in the middle there. And so that has its purpose as well. But some people swear by just throwing that. But I think Indiana blades go off a ton of vibration sometimes to the point where like I don't like to throw like an Indiana in a pond. But like again, whatever you like throwing, you throw. But
preference.
Yeah, like I was telling you early on in the year, I'm typically sticking to my guns with a Colorado or an Indiana blade. Once I hit summer and that water gets warm, I'm just throwing a bunch of blades on there, willow blades all the way. I thought I grabbed one. I guess not. I thought that's what this was.
Full willow.
Yeah, sometimes you'll get blades with like 3 willows on it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, something like that. something just really flashy, something that doesn't have a ton of pull, something that I could just cut through the water really
That's
easily.
a tiny willow, but yeah.
Yeah, so you get what I'm saying. But yeah, I'm trying to think of like for everybody who's watching or comes across this, if they're watching it this far into, thank you.
Yeah, right. Thank you if you do. It's always nice to see that. Honestly, the Talkin Tackles do have a lot more retention.
Yeah, no, I mean, podcasts and stuff like this is cool to me. I mean, like sometimes it's just good to have, like, I'll put stuff on and just let it play in the background just to like listen to it, you know,
same.
I'm so into that. But if you guys want tips on like spinner baits, I guess we didn't talk about where to fish them, like when to fish them and stuff.
Yeah, you said certain scenarios, and so I was actually going to ask, where, what are your best scenarios that you want to fish a spinner bait? What are one of the better scenarios, or what are the worst scenarios?
I'm not gonna say there is a worse scenario because you can fish a spinnerbait anytime. I will argue that there's not a bad time to throw a spinnerbait. I will argue that. I don't care if it's 90 degrees out. I don't care if it's 20 degrees out. I'm gonna fish a spinnerbait because it's gonna work. But with that being said, can you tell I have a ton of confidence behind a spinnerbait?
yeah, you love. I mean, and that's all good. I mean, hey, that's the whole point of why we picked it, though.
Yeah. No, so like grass, weeds, whatever you want to call it, go to. If I have a shoreline with a ton of grass, I want to say reeds and grass at the same time. I said grease.
Hybrid.
Cattails, stuff like that. I love getting along a bank or along a shoreline that has a ton of reeds and a ton of grass sticking out of the water and just pin right next to it and roll that thing through. They love to come out and hit it. So anytime that, early on in the year in the spring, like pre-spawn, all your vegetation stuff hasn't quite grown in yet, right? So you have that submerged grass where you can kind of fish right above it, or you can pretty much fish in it. I will fish spinner baits in the thick of it. I won't fish it in mats per se.
Yeah.
But I will find myself in the summertime when the weeds come in and everything. I'll always have a spinner bait on because there's times where I'm in a boat and, let's say there's like a ton of weed mat to my left, ton of weed mat to my right, but I have like a 10, 15 yard pocket in the middle, right? It's in the water. So I'll pick up a spinner bait, flip it in there, even if I'm throwing a frog or whatever, and just run it through there a couple of times because I find to get bit like that a lot. But yeah, early on in the spring I shouldn't even say that. I just say anytime that you got weeds, even if you're up for it, I'll roll one. As soon as I feel it kind of loaded up, I'll smack it a couple times, get it freed up. The nice thing about spinner baits is you can feel the blades, right? So you can pretty much tell if a spinner bait's running correctly. Or
you feel like the wobble and then it'll just stop.
Yeah, exactly. So, bring that thing through the thick of it if you want and just crank on it a couple times. If it stops moving, get it moving.
Free itself up.
Yeah, I mean, nothing's what gets annoying to me when you start fishing in the thick of it is like, have you ever gotten to that thick stuff where you pull your spinner bait out? It's just like covered like this though. That at that point I'm not throwing it. But
that'll drive you crazy once you do it. That's like when you throw a crankbait and something like that, and it's like, how many times do you have to pull it out with the crap all over it before you're like, you know what? I'm done with this lure.
Yep. And then wood. I have no problem flipping a spinnerbait into shorelines that have a ton of down trees, down logs. I mean, I bump it off of that stuff, get it hung up in there. I know it sounds nuts and crazy, but those fish love in the springtime when you don't have vegetation in yet and stuff like that, and they're moving up for pre-spawn and they're staying tight to that shoreline. Cover as much water as you can around all that wood. I fished a tournament last year, really early in the season, and I caught like 90% of our bags both days on this guy right here.
Wow. Fairly weedless lure, yeah.
I would say so. I wouldn't say it's weedless, but you can definitely get it in the weeds.
Right. It gives it that kind of presentation. I guess it's not like, it has a weed guard or anything like that. I don't even know if that's even a thing. I've never seen.
I don't think it is. I don't know.
But it has like it doesn't get caught up a lot of the times. You can pull it through a lot of the thicker stuff or the wood and the lay down and things like that.
And it's nimble, so it cuts a lot. Like you can get it. That's what I was saying, like grass and reeds and stuff. Like you can sometimes throw a spinnerbait, like going back to like muskie. I know we're talking primarily about bass fishing, but one of the biggest ways to catch muskie around here is to take a big spinnerbait and throw it when I was in Minnesota, we were throwing them in cattails and you would think you'd get snagged, but we'd throw it in there and just ram it
Come
through
right
that,
out.
come
Cool.
right out and smoke it. So that's a cool way to do it for sure. But again, I mean, you can fish it around cover, you can fish it in open water because it looks like a school bait fish. It looks like bait fish, and they're gonna cream it. So
Yeah.
okay.
Favorite knot, since we were talking about earlier with the knot coming down on the line and stuff like that, is there a favorite knot that you prefer to tie with it? I know that's always a preference, and it's, it really depends on you, but
The one that I've had the most luck with cooperating,
yeah,
not sliding around and stuff, has been uni nut.
the uni knot. Okay.
Yeah, I would say that the one I had the most trouble with is probably like, was that improved clinch knot where you like go all the way up, down, and then
Coming
back.
down and around.
Yeah, something like that. I feel like the standard knot that most people know how to tie is where you like stick your, it's a clinch knot. Yeah, it's gotta be.
Yeah, it's the clinch knot, and then they have like the improved clinch knot and stuff like that. There's a bunch of different knots out there that people have, but there's all I like personally. My favorite knot is the polymer knot. A lot of people don't like the poly. It's one of the more favorite knots, but the reason people don't like it is because if you don't, you can use a lot of line sometimes using a polymer knot. If you don't, I guess you got to really do it a lot in order to not use as much line.
Yeah, no, I love the polymer knot. I just, with the polymer knot in particular, when you get into like heavier line,
Yeah.
not really braid, but like fluorocarbon,
Right.
It can be stubborn, as I've learned, or I would say.
Oh, as far as pulling on it and stuff and getting it to cinch down,
like,
or
get it to lay down, right? Like if you're throwing a spinnerbait, like 20-pound fluoro, you could definitely do it, but it just gets stubborn for some reason.
It can be aggravating. It's like, so I get that.
I mainly throw polymer for crankbaits, like crankbaits, chatterbaits, the jigs. Like I'll throw polymer all day.
Okay. Yeah, I throw it on just about everything. It's one of my more popular knots that it's easy to throw. Like if I'm just not trying to think or anything like that, that's the knot I'm tying on, just like by default. We're wearing the same hat. Mine just looks like a hell of a lot older.
Yeah.
I don't think it is. I just wear mine. It's like always on my head, especially when I'm out fishing. So, but
nothing better than a good fitting hat.
That's right. I agree. Well, I don't know, man. We've gone over just about everything. Is there anything else that you can think of that we really haven't covered as far as spinnerbait goes? We went over color, we went over combos and situations. Another thing I know we hadn't really talked about, spinnerbaits work really well on windy days. Yes.
Yes, that's a huge factor. Good
That's
point.
huge. Yeah, I can't believe we didn't even cover that.
Yeah, that was bad. That's really bad.
What's wrong with us?
What's wrong with me, man? I'm over here bragging about the spinnerbait and I didn't bring up one of the more important.
You're the guy that's supposed to know about it.
Yeah. No, that's definitely one thing I'd recommend. Rough water and wind. When you can't deal with a lot of stuff weather-wise, pick up a spinnerbait. I definitely think there are scenarios where if it's calm, you shouldn't always throw one, although it will work. But as soon as, like, I've had days where it's calm and fish are biting good on like a Senko or something, weather changes, you get cloudy skies, you get a little bit of ripple on the water or wake, and they won't touch anything. You pick up a spinnerbait and they just go crazy for it. So that's great.
Yeah, wind is crucial. Wind is, if you wonder what to throw in the wind, I feel like a spinnerbait is like one of the first things I reach for. Spinnerbait and the lipless crankbait are like my two first ones I'd go for on a windier day. They're just, for some reason, I have more confidence. I didn't actually have a lot of confidence in the spinnerbait until I did that Catchco contest. And that was because one of the challenges was an NTB slam, essentially. So everything in the box she had to catch fish on. And so like I went out and I had a spinnerbait out there and I was fishing with it. And I was like, there's no way. Like I just didn't have confidence in it. And I started fishing it more and more. And I caught like 2 and 3 fish on it. And it was just like, because I had to, I got the confidence in it more. Now I love fishing them, you know? So
that's a thing with a lot of baits, just confidence at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a huge thing. Like I am a true believer, and like if you don't vibe with it, don't fish it. Like
I can totally go with that.
Yeah, if you're like, a lot of times you ever fish with somebody where you'd be fishing a bait or they'd be fishing something different, and you're just like laying them out, you're catching a bunch of fish, and they're getting frustrated in the back of the boat because they could be fishing the exact same thing, but it's not working.
It's just not the same for them.
You know what I'm saying? It's not the same. Like I'm a true believer. Like, I don't care if I caught 100 fish today on a spinnerbait and you caught 0. Like, if you think a Cinco is going to work better today or a lipless crank is going to work better today, throw
Absolutely.
that. I don't care if it doesn't make sense in this scenario. Like, make it work if that's what you feel confident fishing. Because if
Yeah,
you're
it's
not,
all about the vibes
yeah, like
for
you won't,
sure.
yep, it'll
Yeah.
eat you alive. But yeah, so there's my little take on spinnerbaits. Thank you for having me. Is there any questions you have for me about
The
anything?
one last thing that I just thought about, is there a certain way that you set the hook on with a spinnerbait? Is there a technique to it? Because with crankbaits, there's a certain technique. With Texas rig, there's a certain technique. Is there a certain technique that you do with a spinnerbait?
I don't, I wouldn't say I jam them. I wouldn't necessarily recommend, setting, yes, you want to set the hook, but like when you set the hook with a soft plastic, feeling a bite and setting the hook is a lot different than retrieving, feeling a bite and catching them. So yeah, I try to lay into them a little bit because
Okay.
a lot of times what happens with spinnerbaits is they'll eat,
Mhm.
and you'll feel them hit it. But if you get too excited on it, or a lot of times you can watch them eat it because of where that bait's running, and you could rip it away from them.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick.
So yeah, so a lot of times I'll hang tight, I'll let that fish load up and then load into it.
Do you reel in? Do you reel down first or anything? Or do you?
I mean, usually you should be consistently reeling that bait in. So you should, when I'm reeling, I would.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even
Reel
think
forward.
about
I don't
that.
think
Yeah.
yeah. Again, I mean, obviously, if I'm trying to get over stuff or whatever, I might have my rod tip up in the air. But for the most part, I'm throwing it out there. I have my rod tip semi down, and I'm just consistently retrieving. When I feel that rod load up, I just bring the rod up. I don't necessarily jack them. I just load.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So I confirm that hook gets, locked in there, but I don't necessarily want to try and urge to set that hook, because a lot of times when you are consistently retrieving, if you try to, like, not necessarily pause, but rip the hook, like let's say you're setting a jig, you might put slack in your line. So when you're slack into it and then yanking it, it's an iffy situation. So I just try to stay pinned and just load into it.
Okay, so you go more to the side too. So you don't go up, you go to the side with the spinner bait typically.
It depends on the scenario,
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you're covering in a bunch of stuff, if you have the room to be able to do that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't recommend sweeping. That's one thing, that's one habit, one thing I've learned in fishing in general.
Okay.
You do want to, if you can, set your hook up, but there are situations where, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I would recommend, I'm trying to make sure I don't give out the wrong advice. I would recommend setting your hook up anytime that you get the opportunity. But
sweeping is more or less when you're doing it like with you mean like with the crankbait, right? When you're sweeping to catch with a crankbait, is that what you mean by sweeping?
No, like, so like a lot of people, like, I know I'm keep going back to a jig and it's kind of like,
oh, you're okay. Yeah, go for it.
But when you flip a jig, you reel down and you jack the hook.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, some people will lose fish, or they'll get frustrated fishing baits like that because they'll sweep. So instead of jacking the hook straight up, they'll reel in
sideways,
sweep to their side. Now that works, but sometimes that's, you know what I'm saying? Like,
it's the way it sits in the bass's mouth. It's almost like, if you can look up underwater footage, I would advise. I love looking up underwater footage with the way bass react and how it actually gets put in their mouth and how, retrieving, coming out of it, it's how the jig actually ends up sitting in the bass's mouth. If it goes up, you have a better chance because, and I believe I was talking this over with Oklahoma's worst angler, Alex. We were talking about that. And the top of the mouth is, where you essentially would rather hook a bass, because that's the tougher part. Once it's hooked in the top part of the mouth, it's got a harder time coming out. And, the lips and everything, if you get them in the lips, it can rip their lips a lot easier. And a lot of times you're going to lose a hookup because of that.
Right. Yeah.
Depending on how stout your hook is, especially.
Right.
Me personally, I like to try to use thinner hooks if I can, but you always worry about them bending out then.
Yeah, it's so funny that's why I like fishing so much, is because it's so scenario dependent.
Oh, yeah.
I say that all the time, and because people always ask me, like, like, when you go out and fish, like, there's more to it than just like getting lucky or whatever. I'm like, you guys have no idea.
It's a whole thought process.
Yeah. And just like what you're talking about, like, a bass could pick up a bait like this, and setting your hook up is a difference in that bait going like this, Or like when I'm saying sweeping, if it picks it up, you sweep and you might just drag the bait over.
Right out of it.
You know
You just lost your whole fish doing that.
So yeah, and you know, so spinnerbait's a little bit different. Crankbaits are a little bit different because they're moving. But yeah, so I just try to avoid sweeping at all costs. But you know, I don't know, to each their own, I suppose.
Go out and try it, like we always say.
If you don't fish a spinnerbait yet, go fish one. And if you don't like them, you need to change that because
they're good. They're definitely good. You know, like I said, I didn't have the most confidence in them, but now it's like anytime I feel wind in the air, I'm always like, should I throw a spinnerbait? Like, and more than not, I'm usually, like I said, either throwing a spinnerbait or a lipless in the windy situations, especially. But yeah, man, we've definitely been talking for a little over an hour now. I appreciate it. I'd love to do it again for sure. I watch all the videos that you do over on Carl's. It's Carl's, right? You're doing the Carl's videos.
Yeah, Carl's Tackle.
Yeah, you do a lot of those. And I enjoy it because I'm a nerd. I love learning all about the new stuff, the tips and stuff. They always come in handy. It's what I'm all about. So I always appreciate a fellow educator in the fishing industry for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it means a lot.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on. It means a lot that you joined me here tonight. I know that we're both getting to a point. We're both. I don't even know, and it's not no disrespect. I don't know how old you are.
I'm 25.
Okay, so you're not as old as I am, which is okay. But I'm getting to be in my I'm about to be 33 in May, so I'm getting to be older.
Couple years.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm young and spry. I feel like my 30s have actually been part of probably my better years of my life so far. So you got some good coming for you.
Good.
But I appreciate you joining me. I'd love to do it again sometime. We'll have to go over something. And when I do live, I definitely love to have you come on as a live guest too. I'm getting the hang of that. I'm trying to figure out how I want to do all that. I think I want to like release the ones I have so far, and then I'll have like a random time where I decide to do a live one after I've caught up. I have like so many of these that I want to pre-record first because it's fun to do. I enjoy this part of it, and I don't know, it's just cool.
No, it's definitely different. It's cool to kick it back and just talk about stuff. Plus, a lot of people are curious. I mean, you're getting some good guests on. I see you at Lojo and stuff.
I'm trying, man. I've something with this part of with this year. I don't know what it is. Something just finally sit with me, and I was like, it's not about the amount of people, because it's a rat race with this influencer game. That's how I feel. And I just finally sat back and decided it's not about the amount of people. It's about the people that And, I decided to really, I'd rather know quality people versus versus the amount of people. You know what I mean? It's about
100%. I mean, just find your niche and what you like to do. Like, I think that's my biggest advice, because everybody's asking me like, how do you do social media for a living? How do you do this? And it's like, it's don't do something because of numbers. Don't ever do anything because of numbers. Do something because you genuinely love to do it. And that's it. Because I know there's so many people that are just like, you can make this amount of money or you can be famous. It's like that. If you are not,
it's not that easy anyway.
It's not. It is the best, worst job ever.
Because you have a passion for it at the same time. The passion's real.
Absolutely. And but you have to love it.
Yeah.
Through and through. So if you love talking to people and doing like a podcast rather than making fishing vlogs, and that's what you're good at and that's what you're comfortable doing, do it and be the best person at it, because nobody else is doing it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
no, yeah, totally. I get that.
Everybody thinks that if you want to exist in the fishing realm, that you have to go out and make a fishing vlog. And it's not. Just be unique, do what you like doing, and somebody out there will want to watch it. Somebody will want to watch it. And because it will eat you alive.
Yeah.
Alive trying to figure out how to get stuff to go right. And sometimes you just got to be like,
you really do. You just got to kind of step back. And I think that's some of the best advice to be on there, or to be given, is especially for influencers, whatever niche you're in, don't let it consume you when it comes to the followers, because they'll come. Stay genuine. That's I think a big thing. Stay genuine to what you're doing. And if you lose the passion, I don't know. Like for me, fishing is such a big thing. I didn't pick up fishing. This is like my second hardcore year doing it. I always tell people, I'm in my 30s, I'm older, and I got into fishing in my older part of my life. But and COVID's to blame for that, really. You know, with the way COVID hit the world, I decided to be one of those people that got out. Fishing took off in the whole world, you know, and
Oh yeah.
I'm guilty. I'm one of those, and I fell in love with it. I knew I loved it throughout my life. I did it a couple times, but I never had like a solid figure in my life to be able to give me all the word of advice and everything like that. And I just finally, I started going more. I got on YouTube. I looked up teaching videos and all this and that. And that actually inspired me to do more of this, because if it weren't for those videos and those channels, I wouldn't know anything right now.
Right.
You know, so the best thing I can do is try to like pay it forward in a sense. You know what I mean? So the things I learn, I want to be able to put out there too and teach people that don't know anything. You know, so I'll ask questions that I know answers to, but I want everybody to know. I want it from as simple as you can make it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's different demographics too, you know, like people think saturated is a bad thing. And although saturated is tough for numbers and stuff like that, out there, at the end of the day, like there's probably dozens of people that, you know, rather watch you than me, and there might be dozens of people that might want to watch me rather than this person or whatever, because like not everybody relates
the same
to everybody. They don't. So like, you know, someone might like my vibe, but somebody might hate my vibe. So like, it's good to have, you know, stuff out there like in different situations, because
the variety.
Like, I mean, some people might just relate to your scenario.
Oh, your camera froze on me.
Like I know a lot of stuff and I make good videos, sure, but like it might be intimidating to a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like that much information and just being like, whoa, might be too much sometimes. So you know, depends on the person.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is you have that's it, like you said, there's a lot of different perspectives and points of views. A lot of the times you'll have people who are beginners and they go into some video, and you know, this is something my girlfriend's told me a lot, to always try to keep it in like a layman's term kind of concept, because you never know the beginner that might be watching your stuff. So if you're using terms that only anglers know, they're going to get totally lost, and then they may go find someone else's video, or somewhere they may completely stop watching your video just to go figure out that term you were using. So I always try to keep it simple, because you know, a lot of the terms I didn't know, and I'll start talking to her and she'll just look at me like, what in the world are you saying? And I'm like, okay, I have to like break it down a little bit better, you know? But it's always good. You know, like you said, variety is good. I definitely agree with that, because there's all different kind of perspectives. And then, you know, it gives us a chance to actually meet and, you know, have that in common too.
Absolutely.
But all right, man, it was good to have you. Well, like I said, I'd love to do it again sometime soon. We'll talk about it and we'll figure it out. I appreciate you coming on, and I'll let you know when all this is dropping and when all this is going on. And I don't know. Yeah, I'll talk to you next time if that's cool with you.
Yeah, for sure. Don't be a stranger.
All right, man. I'll talk to you next time. Okay.
For sure. I'll catch you later.
Bye. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, turn on all your notifications so you know when the next video drops. Even if they're running a little late, I'm still going to be pushing them out there. Jordan, man, I really appreciate it. And that was really fun. I had a great time talking with you. It was cool. And, you know, hey, we still got to figure out if it's the same girl or not. Anyway, it was cool, man. I can't wait to do it again. And, yeah, guys, y'all know how it goes. We're out here fishing. We're out here catching. And we are out here still just meeting some of the coolest people out there in the fishing industry. No complaints.
I never met somebody who spelled their name like that until I met my girlfriend, and then
that's funny, right?
So,
the only other one's like Rachel Ray.
That or I don't know, maybe I don't know, like my girlfriend. We might be dating the same girl. Who knows?
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. No, I don't think that's the case. But who knows?
No, who knows? They're in different rooms right now.
Yeah, she's not home, so
well, mine is so.
That's funny.